Adding an S-curve and increasing the saturation is what you see in most color grading videos on YouTube when it comes to grading log footage. In this video, I will show you why adding an S-curve and increasing saturation is not the way to go. I will also show you what to do instead so you can color grade without chasing your own tail. To show you why I'm not a huge fan of this method, let's brush up some of the core concepts we need to understand. Luckily, we only need to know about two major things: gamma and gamut. Let's put the gamut aside for now. The gamma defines how brightness is handled in your image. A log image is pretty flat because its gamma curve looks like this. On the other hand, Rec. 709 looks more contrasty, and sure enough, its gamma curve looks like this. Secondly, let's talk about the gamut. You have probably seen this shape before. This is a so-called chromaticity diagram. Inside the chromaticity diagram, you will find all visible colors. In this direction is red, in this direction is green, and in this direction is blue. In between, you will find all of the secondary colors. Between red and green, you will find yellow, between green and blue, you will find cyan, and between blue and red, you will find magenta. The white point, the point where there is no color, is usually located right here. The gamut defines how many colors of all visible colors can be represented in a given color space. This means you will find these triangles drawn on top of it. The small triangle in here is Rec. 709. The corners of the triangle are the so-called primaries. The position of these corners define what red, what green, and what blue actually are for a given color space. To make that very clear, this point is red for Rec. 709, this point is green for Rec. 709, and this point is blue for Rec. 709. These larger triangles are typically what your camera can capture, so let's just call it the camera gamut now. Both gamma and gamut work together to define a given color space. This means in our chromaticity diagram we have all the hues and their intensities, or the so-called saturation. But we also need the gamma to tell us how bright something is. Unfortunately, I don't have a pen that can draw into air because I would need to go into the third dimension. So let's have a look at my computer screen. Just so you get the idea, this is a generic Adobe RGB profile. The black outline around here represents our chromaticity diagram. Unfortunately, I can't zoom out anymore, so the line continues there. I will grab my color space and rotate it a bit so you can see that the line actually continues up there. So yeah, this is our chromaticity diagram. As you can also see, the corners of these triangles represent our primary colors, as we just discussed. Here is red, here is green, and here is blue. Also, you will find our white point in the center, here. But remember, the top-down view of our color space only tells us about the hues and their intensity or their saturation. We also need the gamma to know how bright things are. Therefore, a color space is indeed a three-dimensional space. This is why I said I would need a pen that can draw on air. As you can see, the vertical dimension marks all shades between black and white. Just to make that very clear, you can see black is at the very bottom and white is at the very top here. And everything in between can be a shade of gray, so this would be the axis down here in the middle, from black here to white up here, but everything around that is a shade of a given color. With this refresher on color spaces, gamma and gamut in mind, let's have a look at the infamous S-curve and saturation technique. As discussed before, our log image is quite flat, whereas our Rec. 709 image is pretty contrasty. We could also say our log image is quite flat, and our Rec. 709 representation looks more like the things look in the real world. Now we want to go from our recording gamma, which is our log gamma, to our display gamma, which is our Rec. 709 gamma. To do this, we use a LUT or a color space transformation. The LUT or the color space transformation applies a so-called transfer function. But as you can see, this transfer function looks a whole lot like an S-curve. So if the LUT or the color space transformation applies just an S-curve, why shouldn't we just create an S-curve by hand? Well, you certainly can, but there is just too much room for error. If you let the LUT or the color space transformation do this job, you can be sure that the curve has the right slope at the right point, which is pretty much what it's all about. When working with log footage, many people complain about waxy skin tones or pastel-like colors. Well, guess what? If your curve doesn't have the right slope at the right point, you're out of luck. The flatness of your log footage remains, and this causes issues like waxy skin or pastel-like colors. You really need to understand that a log image is not just an image with a very flat contrast or just very little contrast and saturation. When shooting log, the brightness information is encoded logarithmically, hence log footage, using precise mathematics. Therefore, I would also rely on precise mathematics to go from my log gamma to my display gamma. Also, what if you overexposed or underexposed your footage? Which of these endless possibilities with your S-curve would you use to resolve this? And then, how do you make sure you have still the right slope at the right point in your curve? This is what I mean, there is just so much room for error. Let's get rid of our hand-drawn curve. If you use a LUT or a color space transformation, you can just use the offset or the global wheel on your color wheels to change the exposure. This works because the LUT or the color space transformation does all of the fancy mathematics for you. Let's represent our exposure with this little figure here. And also with this little figure here, and the mathematics are being taken care of by the LUT or the color space transformation. Now, if you use your color wheels and shift your signal around, you can be sure that the LUT or the color space transformation will use the proper mathematics to shift your signal up and down and achieve the correct response. So again, if you push your exposure up using the offset or the global wheel with your color wheels, you can rely on these mathematics that the resulting image you get in Rec. 709 is an adequate and valid result. I know. Color grading doesn't have to be difficult. However, YouTube videos and online courses must always be generalized to some extent. These concepts apply everywhere, no doubt about that, but how exactly you apply them depends on your footage, your goals, and your creative intent. Specific questions need specific answers. Therefore, I offer one-on-one consultation. Book your session today to color grade with confidence. The link is in the video description. Okay, as we just discussed, the gamma takes care of how bright things are in our scene. Now, let's talk about the colors in our image. As you can see, our camera gamut is much larger than our Rec. 709 gamut. This means when filming, you have all of this information available. This comes in handy when capturing some very strong colors. For example, if you're filming at a place where there are neon lights. Having such a large color space available is great for capturing the most detail possible. However, most things we shoot sit around here, well within the bounds of Rec. 709, even if we are shooting with a larger camera gamut. This brings me directly to the first problem. Let's say you have captured an image and you have a very strong light source, maybe even a neon light. As you can see, the bulk of your image sits around here, but this neon light source really stretches things out. Then you apply your S-curve and you increase the saturation to make this image feel more Rec. 709-ish. But what happens to the image? This is how the image looks when you increased your saturation. The body of the image looks just fine, but fudge, what is that? You're clipping a color without even realizing it. And then you may ask yourself why you have weird artifacts in your scene. What a proper LUT or a color space transformation can do for you is an operation called Gamut compression. This means the body of your image will get more saturated, but the gamut compression takes care of all the colors that go outside of our gamut and all of the colors that are very extreme. So with gamut compression, your signal looks something like this. Well within the bounds of Rec. 709. Again, this is something a proper LUT or the color space transformation can do for you. Adding insult to injury, we don't even need to talk about edge cases where you film a strong light source like a neon sign or something. There is a much bigger problem. Let's take a ruler and I will prove it to you. So let's get our signals out of the way here. I take my ruler and line it up with the white point in my image. Now I will try to line it up with the red points in the Rec. 709 gamut and the camera gamut. And look at that. These points do not line up. This means the red in our camera gamut has a different hue than the red in our Rec. 709 image. Let's have a look at my computer again. The mere direction from the white point tells you what hue the color has. This means anything in this direction will be more magenta leaning, and everything in this direction will be leaning more towards orange. Just for the sake of it, let's align our ruler with the white point again and try the same with our green point. As you can see, the green of our camera gamut is way up here and nowhere near the line where the green point of our Rec. 709 gamut is. Let's have a look at the blue. Again, I will line up my ruler, but Okay, the difference is not as stark, but still, we are not on the same line. This means if you just increase saturation, you will end up with weird color shifts, because the corners of these triangles do not line up. Again, the corners of these triangles represent our primary colors for each color space. And if that doesn't line up, our fundamental building blocks are off, which in return results in colors that are weirdly shifted. Because one pixel has always a red, a green, and a blue value, and if these three building blocks are off, then there is really no help. But okay, let's get rid of my ruler, and let's pretend you have dialed in the perfect amount of saturation. The triangles still have a different shape. Look, the camera gamut is not only larger, but the shape is very different indeed. So even if you increase the saturation to a perfect amount, you will end up with something like this. Because fundamentally speaking, the camera gamut still has a different shape than the Rec. 709 gamut. Look how far the green point sticks out, and how everything is skewed towards green. And again, everything behaves that way because our fundamental shape is contained when you just increase the saturation. Now, let me ask you a fun question. Did you ever just apply an S-curve and increase the saturation in your footage, and you ended up with a green image? Well, guess what? What happens if you just increase the saturation? You will end up with a different shape. And people then usually complain about green skin tones. What needs to happen instead is a process called Gamut mapping. Gamut mapping is basically speaking just solid math to make sure each point in each triangle ends up at the right point in our target color space. So we are not only scaling the triangle up by increasing the saturation or down by decreasing the saturation, we will also change the shape of the mirror triangle by a process called Gamut mapping. This way we make sure the green point ends up where the green point is supposed to be, the blue point ends up where the blue point is supposed to be, and the red point ends up where the red point is supposed to be. And the beauty of this is, every random point in between will end up at the correct place. Now we talked about everything we need to know in order to go from one color space to another. We discovered that we need to consider three main points to do this accurately. To go from one color space to another, we need to take care of our brightness information. We use tone mapping to do this. Remember, this was our transfer function. This will take care of all things brightness. But we also need to take care of our color information. To do that, we need a process called Gamut mapping and Gamut compression, which is, strictly speaking, a part of Gamut mapping. This means we take care of our color spaces so all of these coordinates line up. Because color spaces are rigorously defined, all of the operations are always the same if you go from one color space to another. So for example, if you go from slog3 sgamut3.cine to Rec. 709, the operations do not change, no matter what's going on in your clip. I want to add that you can do all of these operations manually. And if you get a kick out of it, and if your image looks decent, good for you, go for it. But let me ask you one question. Do you build a bicycle every time you want to go for a ride? Do you build your own hammer every time you want to put a nail into the wall? Yeah, I don't think so. So I think there is no point in doing this manually for every shot. Also, what if you change your mind down the road? Do you go back into every clip and tweak the endless parameters to get a cohesive looking video? And how do you decide where you make your adjustments? Well, good luck with that. And also, I get it. When I started color grading, I also believe that the true professionals don't use LUTs and they must do everything by hand because they want the greatest degree of control. But that's a huge misunderstanding. There is nothing wrong with using LUTs or color space transformations. And the people who say things like, LUTs ruin your footage, or LUTs destroy your dynamic range, just haven't used these tools properly, period. Everything we discussed in this video relies on one of the, if not the most important concepts in color grading. This concept helps you to achieve better color grades faster. You will color grade with more confidence and you can focus on what actually matters, your creative intent, rather than fighting these technicalities. So watch this video next to learn all about this amazing concept, because once you nail this, you can rely on the proper tone mapping, the proper gamut mapping, and the proper gamut compression to make your life easier.